We are an email automation tool that matches and understands your customer data model.
Welcome to Uptech Report. This is our Applied Tech series. Uptech Report is sponsored by Terraleap. Learn how to leverage the power of customer stories at terraleap.io. Today, I'm joined by my guest, Jane Portman, co-founder of Userlist. Welcome, Jane. Good to have you on.
Excited to be here. Thank you, Alexander.
Absolutely. Now, Userlist is all focused around email automation, specifically for software as a service companies. Can you describe to me, Jane, very briefly, what is the problem that you set out to solve with Userlist?
Would you like to hear the whole retrospective back 4 years ago, or what we're doing right now?
Let's start with the now. In one sentence, what is it the problem, and then we'll hear the journey where it began.
We provide an email automation tool, full cycle from email marketing leads to customers' lifecycle email for SaaS companies. And unlike other tools, we focus exclusively on B2B SaaS, which helps us meet their data model and do other great things.
Email marketing, gosh, it's been around forever. I feel like, and some even say, aren't we past that yet? Like social media, et cetera. But I guess you would agree, you have a company based on it. That is not true. Email is still so relevant for everyone. I'm curious though, you're really honing in on SaaS and software companies, helping them B2B SaaS and software, as you stated. I mean, the email space is pretty saturated. It's busy. So let's hear a bit more of the journey. Like, where did this begin? And you say, yeah, let me carve out my own space in this email marketing space.
When we started out in the fall of 2017, 4 years ago, we had no clue that we're going to become like a full classic ESP email service provider. We were just going to do some behavior-based email, like a little bit, just capture some customer data, just send some behavior email. And we had no clue about how complex and competitive this industry is and how challenging it is to get new customers. One of the key ideas we had in mind was great retention, because once you're in, sure. But yeah, that also comes with hard adoption and many other challenges, education, whatever else we've been doing for the last few years. It's really, really getting better, but it is not an easy journey for sure. Not for the weak of the heart.
I feel like that's a lot of SaaS co-founders could probably appreciate that exact statement of like, you started something, you're trying, and you're like, wow, okay, this is a little bit harder. We got to explore where is this going. Now, you also have a podcast and around UI breakfast. And so you've actually building up an email list and content around there as well. For when did that begin? 2012?
I believe 2014, no, 13, okay. Probably. Okay. And UI Breakfast is a good old design podcast. We've just crossed 2 million downloads last year. Wow. And I believe we're on the good way to the 3, because it took like 6 years to get to the first million and another year for the second. Imagine like how traction really works. So I'm pretty sure we'll get there soon.
It's slow at first, but the scales ideally after. So you're familiar with building lists and building followers, and then you start to build a solution to stay in contact and connection with folks of deliverability using email. I'm curious of like, okay, when did that really start to form and fashion into tailored to software solutions and where you are now today?
We had the audience of SaaS companies in mind from day one. So that's exactly the vision, the mission, to provide a great quality, enjoyable tool that would help specific SaaS problems. That has not changed. So I'm glad that like the DNA remained the same.
Yeah. How has that evolved now over the last few years?
So what has been happening on the product side, we've just been gradually building nice, solid product and building up features. And we really have just expanded the feature set. We haven't killed anything. We haven't pivoted dramatically. Well, we've redesigned the colors, maybe once, like we turned black and white instead of purple last year, but nothing crazy, really. So on the back end, it's been the same nice product that has grown its feature set from very young MVP version onto what it is right now. But on the front side, on the marketing side, we've been sort of pivoting and shifting our positioning to better find, that match in the eyes of the founders and product people. And we started with the behavior-based email pitch, and then we transitioned into customer messaging for SaaS a little bit there. We have a great post where we dissect our positioning process based on April Dunford's workshop. Not workshop, book. And it ranks really well for April Dunford.
Which is a lead source for you, is just being able to.
I don't think it's I don't think these are like bottom of the funnel leads, but definitely eyeballs. So we have a great post about that. And then last year, we've positioned back again into email automation. We added marketing leads to the mix. So previously, we've just doing customer email, lifecycle email, and then we expanded to the full cycle of marketing, then the life cycle. So from marketing signups to trials to paying customers, full thing.
Also, that's kind of really interesting when you look at that entire email marketing lifecycle from as you just mentioned, a very bottom of the funnel potential cold lead to they are getting on your interest and growing, and then they become a customer, and then all the way through that customer journey. You're trying to provide a solution through the entirety of that.
Yeah. We've been always, for the first 2-3 years, we've been super stubborn about just handling the customer part. So everything happens after they sign up for your free trial, for example, because it's just easier when they sign up. You're in this product relationship. You don't need consent. No opt-in or anything, no lead magnets. They just you just have the customer data, and your goal is to help them. Makes things easier. However, we did learn over time that founders want all their email in one tool. They just want to use the same platform for sending marketing emails and customer emails. And that's what we did. It certainly did introduce certain complexity, but it's interesting that we started from the hard and pivot and added the easiest side. Usually an ESP goes backwards. They would have marketing email first, and then they would start layering up the hard stuff, the behavior-based campaigns, the customer data, everything that is like really challenging. We had that from day one. And then we just removed some limitations to allow for marketing leads.
I'm always fascinated with the potential directions one could build a company, right? Like from the hard side, the easy side, you go for big fish, go for small fish, ground up, top down.
Not the end of the story yet. There is another pivot that we made just recently. It's not the pivot. It's just it's a positioning pivot, explaining what is that we're best at. And that is the keyword we settled on is the customer data. We are an email automation tool that matches and understands your customer data model. And
how do you land on that?
Particularly means that all email tools out there, they pretend that we serve individual users. They would have just one big list of leads and customers, and you would have 1,500 heads in there, and you would not know, is that 3 accounts? Is that 20 accounts? What is it? And we do have another data layer to this. We have company accounts, which help users structure leads, structure customers into accounts, store metrics on the accounts level, do other stuff that sounds super complex, but in fact, it brings clarity and simplicity because it just matches what the SaaS has behind the curtains. And that is the beauty. We try to tackle this problem with the name of like company accounts, but it just doesn't really resonate. But customer data is something that people understand. So it's our keyword.
Talk about a journey to find the right keywords that your customers resonate with. And it sounds like customer data or client data may be it. I'm curious. I mean, when you start to look back at building? You mentioned you started with the harder things first. What were some of the aspects that made it difficult and other pieces easier?
Well, it's a complex engineering problem. The automation engine that stores and analyzes behavior data and processes that and then triggers campaigns based on that. First, it's a complex engineering problem. And second, you can just go with the dirty MVP out there like that. This stuff is sending customer email. It's got to be good. So the closed beta, private beta period was pretty long. Then we officially launched only 2 years later in August of 2019. So it was just much slower than some of the startups out there can move.
Mm-hmm. When you look at being able to do this different email automation, are there certain aspects that are easier to automate than others?
For example,
well, I'm curious when you start to look at that you document the entire life cycle now. You've already given me a clue that the email, the marketing side is easier versus the consumer data driven behavior side. So I'm curious, just giving me some insight into. I'm not an email marketing expert or definitely on the product development side of it, but I'm just curious itself of like, as you started to build this on both sides, is there certain parts that are easier that you've been able to develop and other parts that have just been harder to tackle?
Marketing email is easier in that regard that typically a lead is basically a bare bones email address. That's all it's necessary to call it a lead. Sure, you can layer on some marketing attribution, but there is no product behavior associated with it. And the mechanics is pretty simple. People create forms. We have a form builder now. They create forms, add it to the website, set up lead magnets, and then something happens when somebody submits a form. That is as easy as it could get. But when it comes to customer lifecycle, it's just super complex. It depends on the complexity of the product. It's also hard for our customers to grasp it from scratch. Nobody's born to think about lifecycle email, right? And we have to do a great deal of education in that front.
When you look at all the data that you're able to collect and pull in, what does that look like as far as like the connection to a software or SaaS? What's some of the data that you're able to ingest and track and then be able to make behavioral decisions to send certain emails?
We are not tracking something. We're helping our customers track something. Basically, we accept as much or as little data to our direct API integration as the product manager considers necessary. So it will be typically a few things, so some user properties such as billing plan, some success metrics, things like that, and we also accept events, also like as many or as little as you need. But all of that is related to customer success metrics, obviously, and those metrics, when they change and grow into different lifecycle phases, they help trigger automations.
It's simply basically whatever outputs that they want to come from their own application then would trigger said emails that you would set up inside of Userlist.
Yes and no. They would send this behavior data to us. Userlist would process the data, make conclusions, segment, calculate, and then that engine would trigger emails. If that makes sense.
Yeah, let's expand a little bit more, because I'm curious, because I've seen some variety of different email solutions out there where you're setting up a lot yourself as the user of, all right, if X happens, do Y. How much of this is more your engine, as you mentioned? Is it just it's figuring out? How does that process work?
well, I'm no engineer to explain, but basically, if you would have an API integration that sends information to us, let's say photo editing app, each user has a number of albums and the number of photos they have. And you just, when this information updates, you send it to Userlist. And in some other part of the app, you have your definition of a segment that is called advanced users. And the definition of that segment would be the criteria is they have at least 50 albums. So when the number of the property reaches 50, the segment starts working, like they dynamically join the segment. And then in another part of the app, you would have an automation campaign that says when the user joins segment advanced users, then you can send them this campaign that would introduce them to different features, check in on something else, et cetera, et cetera. Basically, that's the bare bones mechanics.
Gotcha. Is it often the type of customers you're working with? Who's the person in there? Is it a product marketing manager? Like who's using this and setting this up often?
The most qualified users are probably product managers and also marketing managers on the marketing side. But the people who make the most sense of the customer data are the product managers. Yes, that's their biggest domain. For smaller scale SaaS, it's very often the founder themselves who are both technical and setting up the marketing technology. So it would be them doing the integration and things. But it always comes on the edge of they might have had like a hard-baked, hard-coded email, but they have to go to their code base to fix a typo. And when they bring on somebody who writes emails, it becomes this solution becomes not viable, and they need an interface. That's like a classic example of when a smaller scale SaaS founder would need an email automation tool.
Got it. So often it starts with baked into the code. The technical co-founders built that way, but you can't scale when you bring in a marketing manager who doesn't necessarily have that skill set to go into the code.
Yeah.
That's when you need the interface. How much when you look at kind of the roadmap of where you guys are going, what do you what are you excited about? Like where do you see email marketing and email automation for the user side? Where do you see it going?
We are mostly excited about growing our name and sharing the market, because we do feel this area is just does not deserve get the attention it deserves yet, and there is lack of education, and current tools are really not offering the powerful solution that would really leverage clean data and help do automations the right way, not the way they can do like simple campaigns or whatever. So really, like there's so much to do, and there are so many companies that on the front side they look like they're doing some advanced stuff, but really when it comes to, and they probably are on the marketing email, but when it comes to lifecycle email, it's just surprising how many untapped opportunities there are that are not being leveraged.
Can you give an example, like of a use case, either of one of your customers or even one of you've thought about a use case that really highlights what's being missed in customer lifecycle email?
One of our customers who are bigger companies is Toggle Plan. So you may be familiar with the Toggle time tracker. Mm-hmm. So they have a division, another tool called Toggle Plan, and they have been looking for a tool that understands account level data for a while, and they haven't found one. So they were really thrilled when they could implement their ideas when they found Userlist. So that's one of the case studies.
Gotcha. It's being able to already see we have all this account level data. How do we utilize that? They're already a customer, but being able to use it to the next step further. You really say that it's an untapped market that really isn't being met right now.
Nobody's doing it much because it's hard to do with the tools. Basically, if one user does something, another user does another thing. And how do you know what's the activity on the compound activity on the on the account. You can't really track that. It's you have to do some workarounds, hacks, and nobody really goes into that too much.
I guess this is a great example of a difficult challenge. A lot of people maybe don't even want to touch, but you did, and you're solving a need. So I'm curious, if you think about just a general email marketing tip that you could share with a product marketer or a marketing manager out there, what comes to your mind?
Look beyond user onboarding. And user onboarding is a hot word. Everybody cares because activation is obviously important, but and I love it because it's a great SEO word. Like it's understood across all industries. But go beyond that and look into customer loyalty campaigns that you could set up. Look at the upgrades, upsells. You can ask people for reviews. You can ask for referrals. You can provide, like, automate some of the great customer success work. And that is like a few clicks of a button away, really. But nobody, well, not nobody, but it's such not a priority that it's a shame that really very few companies do it well.
Oh man, that's a good tip that you often just stop at the onboarding, but don't miss at the opportunity for loyalty and everything beyond that. I'm curious, have you just like personally been interested in email before all this, or did that just kind of start to grow?
I've been an active user of email marketing tools before because I've been doing info products before jumping into the SaaS train. I have like 4 books in my portfolio, have been practicing in my own marketing sandbox there, making side money. But yeah, I've been curious what's going on, and the existing tools were also quite surprising. They were not like never really delightful to use or anything. So I had certain, my past as a UI UX consultant. So I've never been delighted by email UX, and that's a shame, I think. So yeah, there is certain, like, everybody has love and hate relationships with their email provider. That's a common.
And it's from your perspective, which I appreciate of even UI UX, it's like having that enjoyable experience both from the user and then the consumer, and individual using it. It sounds like you probably embedded that into what you created.
It's a buzzword. Really, being simple and beautiful is not a selling point, but it is so great to have it. Because if you go to, okay, I don't want to call out names, but basically every tool that has a visual builder where you can like do complex stuff with like a diagram and stuff, in order to get to the body of that message, how many clicks do you have to make? Like in order to find the actual text, that is like 5 or so. And that is so frustrating because if you're working on your sequences, you're working with the text very often. You want to see what's inside, and it's pretty sad that it looks fancy, but it's not too usable, unfortunately. So we're hoping to solve that part at least a little bit.
Got it. I'm curious, when you just as on the technology side, fun question I always like to ask: is there any technology that you really enjoy using? Any apps or software out there as a founder or as a leader, as an entrepreneur that you've used? Simple ones.
I should probably ask for some affiliate revenue from them. They're because it's a common question, and I have been saying that a lot of the last year. So in 2021, we have added 2 tools to our toolbox at Userlist. One is Pitch, the presentation software. So it helps you build slide decks. And I am a designer, and it is hard to impress or inspire me with a presentation tool. Like, they're always hideous and stuff. This tool was just so lovely, modern, and had wonderful templates in it. I was delighted, and it managed to inspire and love my presentations. That is something to say. And another one is Livestorm, and it does the same thing, but for webinars, workshops, and other live events. It's probably a modern alternative to like GoToWebinar or other webinar software.
Mm-hmm.
There was a runner-up previously, Crowdcast.io. It's also lovely, but Livestorm just is absolutely UX delightful. There's some, yeah, sure, it's complex software. There might be some challenges, but it's so lovely to use. So these two, Pitch and Livestorm, were
Pitch.com, Livestream.co. Googling it while you mentioned it. Yeah, those both. I always love to ask it because like the fun thing about different software and SaaS solutions that they're always new opportunities, new ones coming up, and it's like, what is something I don't know? And then when you find, you're like, oh, this.
What are yours? What are yours?
So I've actually been using Beautiful.ai. I guess it's in the same space as Pitch. I'm also a big fan of. One of the reasons why I do these interviews is I get to meet a lot of cool SaaS startups. So another one is Journey, Journey.io. I think what they're doing is pretty cool too. But there's a lot. So I don't want to give any favorites, but those just popped in my head. Similar space of just presentations and giving interaction.
You can tell the naming trend is towards simpler words, right? So
one word. We're going to run out of, that's why I never have to do all these other TDLs, right? Like no more .coms because they don't exist for it. You have to do .io, .co, .app, .whatever.
We had an .io as a part of our brand name for a while. And then we purchased a .com in 2019. And to be honest, we were quite tired that when we would type userlist.io, it would instantly transform into a link anywhere. And that's just not fun. Sometimes you don't want that. Like sometimes you want to put accent on another link in your message. So it was quite tiring, like just infrastructure wise.
You're like, yeah, we want the .coms to stop putting it as part of our name. Was it pretty expensive to make the purchase?
4K. We got it for 4K. I think it's a deal. It's a deal.
Yes.
It's a steal. It's basically a steal, though. We started negotiations years ago, and starting bid was like 20K USD, and we're like, no, we're brand new bootstrap startup, no 20K. But then we grew, and they coincided, sort of like gave up on us a bit, and there was the sweet intersection. It was like end of month, and the manager was probably looking to meet their quota for domain sales, and they were like, if you say 4K they will settle, and we did. We never looked back.
Well, you're like, yes please, we'll take that.
Yeah.
Oh my god. When you look back at the years now you've been growing and developing Userlist, what are some of the marketing aha moments in getting the word out and being able to grow your own user base?
It's been such a journey. Like, we have not picked an easy battle. It's like a series of mini aha moments throughout. But like one of the recent aha moments is that we have been trying to say account level, company level, nobody was getting it. And then we suddenly, someone recommended that we use customer data in the headline, and we were like, that is it. Like, that is it. But with the,
when you realized that was it, was it in an ad you're running, in an email? Like what was the feedback that made you realize, okay, this is working with our customers?
Oh, that's great. We redesigned our homepage to include this new positioning where we would prioritize this company level feature, like front and center, because it is our unique selling proposition. And so I launched this new page, put a screenshot of the header section of the like hero section on Twitter, saying like, here it is, we are planting a flag in this direction. And then comments started flooding in of people who are like, we're not getting it. Like, what does it mean? And I had to explain it. And it was like, too bad. Like, the feature is really good. We know. Why is nobody getting it? And then Derek Reimer, one of our friends, he was like, just say, email automation SaaS for SaaS that gets our customer data model. And we were like, yes. And we borrowed that. And so we decided and what not just the copy, but the realization that if there is no single keyword, then you might look for something else from a different angle. Unfortunately, like keywords is still important for selling your product, and not just for SEO, but for explaining what it does, for the pitch, for the sales copy, for anything.
Yeah. People want to jump to the realization, I understand what you're selling. I know what problem it's solving for me. And if you can't get to that quickly, they skip by. And I guess that's what the keyword is really for, to make that realization faster. And so it sounds like what you do is changing the website copy, the messaging on your homepage. And then either you're getting questions from people like, what does this mean? Or you're not. And ideally that you're seeing the conversion rates go up based off of just what those words are.
It's pretty fascinating how with SaaS, you could have the same product, but approach, try different ways of selling it. And it's kind of awesome. It's like an untapped world of opportunities. And the word is out that bigger companies, they test their value prop all the time, like they test different homepages all the time. And we didn't notice it much because, Dropbox still Dropbox, but trust me, they're still running like some tests on their homepage, even though they probably don't need much explanation.
It's like there's so much power in being able to test. By the way, if you want to know another one, someone I interviewed recently, Do What Works, Andres Glussman, and what he's doing, he's been tracking what are the top SaaS companies, or not just SaaS, but companies, what are they testing and what's working, and he's tracking that. So then you can.
Is there a website for that? Where can we go?
Yeah, the thing is dowhatworks. Let's see. As we talked, it's always .io. It is .io. Dowhatworks.io.
The thing is, what works for Dropbox does not work for a small startup, because it's unfortunately that the accomplished SaaS companies, they have already solved the traction and the market fit problem. They are known for something. It doesn't matter what's on their homepage. What they're doing, of course, they're refining it, but it's not a deal breaker for a small SaaS.
It's like they've already done all the major shifting, and now it's just tiny minor here, test here, test here, test here. For earlier stage software companies, you're still doing the major shifts, like entire messaging shifts to find it. That's a good, interesting question to ask. Is like when do you know you're in a good place to stop doing the major shifts and to start doing more minor shifts?
Oh. Well, that just depends. Let's admit that. I mean, there is never a place where you feel like, oh, we got it. Like, let's stop. Really. So.
Yeah. Are you doing any outbound advertise like LinkedIn ads or SEO or pay-per-click type of stuff, or is it all inbound and content creation and email marketing?
Yes, mostly that. We are heavy on content. We produce a great podcast called Better Done Than Perfect. And I have a tattoo that says BDTP on my wrist.
I love that. For those that are listening, because we do have the audio version as well.
So yeah, it's kind of a motto that we run by because myself and my co-founder Benedict are recovering perfectionists, and especially like in our industry, you can polish your tool forever. So we do strive to find that balance between shipping and learning and polishing it to death. So we prefer shipping and learning when we can, but it's hard. So we run a podcast with that name. We have different seasons, dedicate different things. And it's a great way to meet industry experts. We have a consultants program. So we build relationships with email marketing consultants. We have put out some great content on the blog. We have monthly workshops with industry experts, and just trying to raise the awareness,
Based off of all the different things you're doing, what would you say is like the top 2 or 3, or even just top 1 that you see the most traction as far as traffic and interest and like leads coming through?
75% of the traffic we get is from people typing userlist.com in their box or searching for Userlist on Google, which means they've heard of us somewhere. And this means that it's working, but yes, it's a long-term content play that works. Podcast appearances are fun. There have been across our journey a few that had big audiences and kind of really brought in influxes of leads. One was indie hackers. Another one was Startups for the Rest of Us by Rob Walling. So these are just like good old accomplished shows that brought in more ears, eyeballs to our problem.
Gotcha. So paying attention to the direct traffic, obviously, meaning when you see a giant spike, you're looking for a recent appearance. But if it's a general increase, it's coming from your overall branding content and creating content. That's fascinating. Since obviously your customers and those who will be fascinated with your product are probably interested in how customers connect and find a journey. I feel like all this is very relevant. I'm always fascinated with businesses, startups, and SaaS software companies. How do they grow? How do they get to the next stage? How do they get interest and get that messaging across? So I appreciate you sharing the journey that you've been on.
Thank you. Slow and steady. And my co-founder Benedict also runs a show. Yeah, you see, we're really big on podcasting.
Yes.
He runs a show with his friend the Benedicte. So it's Benedict and Benedicte at the moment. It's called Slow and Steady. They commiserate weekly on like the daily ups and downs. So like my shows are all interviews. I love interviewing people, and they do this like talk style when you just share the updates and stuff like that. Yeah. So that's fun. Slow and steady. It is slow and steady. It's not like overnight. Not for many people.
We'd much appreciate this dramatic increase and lots of money and things are good, but there are good things. It's slow and steady. You have more opportunity to fine tune and really know where you're going. At least that's what I'm pulling out. I feel like is a good answer.
Except that there is always this feeling that you're missing out on something, and there is like this rocket ship opportunity behind the corner. But where is it? What is it?
Yeah. There's a few folks when I think back of who I've interviewed, where they were bootstrapped mostly from the beginning, and then they decided to actually get some funding, and they talked about. They're like, well, there is really no right answer, but we kind of wish we got it sooner because some of the competitors leapt ahead of us. And so that, with us being able to get the funding, now we can actually get the messaging out faster and further. But that's in the case where I feel like the competition is pushing you and you need to go faster. And maybe it makes sense to do that. But I guess if you don't have that same competition, maybe the speed of throwing more money at it is not necessarily needed.
We haven't really experimented with paid on top of the funnel, but from the experiments we ran, it's not like you see a Facebook ad and you sign up for an email automation tool. Seriously, it's not the type of funnel. Sure, there are more complex content funnels. There is untapped potential for us to make them work with content, but not with like, oh, Userlist, nice, I'm signing up. Well, no, you've got to hear about it like 10 times probably.
I feel like that's typical for B2B solutions and B2B software solutions. It's like you're not just going to, unless it's a free trial, maybe you might see an ad and say, let me try it out.
I wouldn't say like trying out a complex B2B tool. What is it going to do? Like it hasn't got your data in it. You've got to integrate, do the work. That's another channel.
And easy, and you could just get into it. If it takes a while for you to actually see the benefits and use it, it's still technically not free. It costs you your time.
More than that, we've been We've been raising our price, testing different pricing, like changing pricing, and the higher the tool price, the more accountability and respect you and reason to put in work you have. So free, like we had a $9 plan 2 years ago. Imagine, like we had those people who paid $9 keep paying $9 doing nothing. We had a whole range of them, whole cohort.
Wow. That doesn't
kill that in a few months. Yeah.
Oh man. Wow. It talk about refinement and testing and slowly getting there. For just kind of any closing thoughts for whether the other founders out there or product marketers or marketing managers, are there any thoughts that you'd want them to think about and know about, whether it is email marketing or more just general in growing a B2B software company or SaaS tool? What would it be?
Hiring help instead of doing things yourself, and just accelerating that process. Maybe you probably need a little bit of funding to do that, or you hit a gold mine of product market fit or something. But getting some hands on board is better than just going alone, because you will get there a little bit faster. And it shouldn't be there should be more hands doing the work. And it doesn't have to be expert, expensive hands. You can leverage different opportunities. And for us, when we didn't have good funding early on, the solution would be to find specialists, working hands in niche specializations. So it wouldn't be like a brilliant generalist marketer that we hire or brilliant marketing director, but it could be very solid, hardworking SEO, I don't know, PPC contractor who would manage our ads. They do this, they know this stuff, they do it well, they do it for the reasonable money, part-time, very doable, really. No reason why a SaaS founder should go and manage the ads themselves. I procrastinated on that for a year. And then when we started working with a consultant last year, I was like, no wonder I've been procrastinating on that. That is a load of work and not a pleasant kind of work either. So just an example. Niche down, segment those ideas for help and just implement it.
That is a great tip for maybe you can't afford to say an awesome generalist, but going very specific, getting a small thing off your plate can definitely help you. Divide and conquer,
sort of.
I love it. Thank you so much, Jane, for sharing the journey, the product that you guys are building, and also some of the struggles and how you've been solving those over this time. This has been great to have you on the series.
Amazing. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. And we'll see you all in the next episode of UpTech Report. Have you seen a company using AI, machine learning, or other technology to transform the way we live, work, and do business? Go to uptechreport.com and let us know.